All right, there's your vacuum switch valve on top of your steering column. Every time you move your gear shifter, it meshes with the steering column and regulates the vacuum that goes to your vacuum-powered parking brake release. Now, I've already checked the parking brake release with a vacuum pump, and it functions correctly. That vacuum hose hanging down is what went to it, but I hooked up a new hose to it and hooked up a vacuum gauge, so I know that works. So when you hook up vacuum to this thing will go up and down like that. When your engine is running and you have your foot on the brake and you are in park and then you move the gear shifter to some gear, this will flip up because this switch right here will switch vacuum from the engine to the parking brake release. And that connection from the engine is this little vacuum plug right here. The one on the right, the one right here my finger is tapping on, the one on the right is the one that goes to the engine, and I have vacuum to that. I've already checked it with my gauge, and this red one, this red stripe, goes over to the parking brake. All right, we're going to use the camera and get a video of the back side of this thing so I can get an eyeball on how to remove this from the steering column. Not sure you can hear me over there. I'm moving this phone around trying to get an eyeball on that thing because I can't get underneath the left-hand side. All right, we got the strap off of there and the little bolt. And we got the neutral safety switch disconnected. Got the main wiring harness pulled off of there. It's a two-prong connector, no big deal. There's a second one here. Wanted to record where the wires were, so the purple one goes down this way towards the tab. It's not going to just lift out of there just like easy peasy. This little thing here, this tab is kind of in there pretty good, so you got a little, you know, give it a little oomph and it'll pop out. So anyway, let me go ahead and get this connector off here, and then there's a vacuum port connector on the back side which slipped off actually. Never mind. It went you see the green and black and the white and black vacuum ports. It went to some undisclosed location. Oh, it went here. It went there. So hopefully there's a label on the other one that says up. So the red one goes to that one. I'm assuming. I see in the last bit of the video the piece of tape back there I believe is on the top. So we'll confirm with that so we don't get the order messed up. So let me get this connector off here, get this thing over to the bench. All right, so the whole reason I pulled this off of the car is because I couldn't get any vacuum over to my parking brake release. Just wouldn't work. So this thing sits in there on top of the column like that. This port over here goes to the parking brake. This port over here goes to the parking brake. This port over here. Why am I doing this in this format? Why don't I change it? I'm no longer underneath the car, so let's do it properly. We're going to do an old-fashioned cell phone video here today. Anyway, that goes to the parking brake, and that goes to, I think this goes to the environmental controls, automatic climate control. So often, if you put this thing in the environmental control mode, you'll hear a clicking noise over on the actuator on the passenger side of the car. So I think inadequate vacuum is getting to that thing, and it's but if you leave it in vent, the clicking goes away. And if you fiddle with the temperature setting and you send alternating, I'm guessing on this, I really have no idea, but I'm thinking that the vacuum signal is improper going over to the controller for the air conditioning system, and that's going to be, hopefully that'll fix that problem as well. We're going to find out though. All right, let's see. Anyway, so basically that's park, and it's pretty stiff. I don't think, it's not supposed to be like that. I looked at another gentleman's video on a Cadillac, and he took his apart to diagnose the vacuum here, and there's a little rubber diaphragm in there and it gets out of whack, so we're going to try to fix that. So let me see what I need to do to take this thing apart. I think really we're just looking at some swaged or bent over tabs there. See how this bent over? So I'll just unbend those and lift off this half of it here real quick, and we'll see what we see. All right, that wasn't terrible. You got here's the underside there. You can see the original grease is still pretty good. We'll clean up these contacts here. You can see where when you move this guy back and forth, you have these contacts here and they're spring loaded. So that nearly popped out of there when I, thankfully I didn't lose any of that mess. So, but none of this was working incorrectly. The only issue was the vacuums not being switched properly. So these spring-loaded connections here were working fine. So the only thing I'll do there is I'll just clean them up a little bit with a little steel wool, and we'll call it a day. Let's see. Let's go ahead and lift this out of here. And the underside looks like that. And this back part here is where the vacuum is switched. So from what I gather, I believe there's some sort of diaphragm in there that when you move it over, it allows the vacuum to flow in a channel or something similar. So anyway, let me go ahead and pull this off of here real quick and see what that looks like. Have I ever done this before? Absolutely not. And you can see there's some sort of spring-loaded something going on right there, right? But this part is not coming out this way. It's got to go out that way, because if you flip it over, you see you got the swage. I believe you call that swaging, basically bend the metal. And anyway, so I think what I'm going to have to do is get a little cold chisel or something and tap a couple of these so I can get this apparatus out of here without breaking this entire cast housing, because man, you don't want to mess with that. That looks pretty doggone delicate right there. So you got to be really careful with this old stuff. So these little small screwdrivers work pretty good as vacuum stoppers. All right, so I got a couple of vacuum lines hooked up. This is the engine supply vacuum, and this is the vacuum that goes over to the parking brake assembly. And I've got the Mighty Vac out there. So with the selector in park, if you pump this guy up, you can see that you can't build vacuum, because when the car is in park, it's not supposed to allow vacuum to go from the engine to here to release the parking brake. Now when you move it to reverse, which is slightly over that way, now we got some vacuum. 17, 18, that's about like an engine, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's holding vacuum. And now I'm going to move this guy. Here's the problem. I think this is supposed to release. And I heard a little, but it didn't. I think it's supposed to release all the way, right? So I'm going past that point. And it's kind of getting down there a little. I'm moving it back and forth, basically, and it's supposed to, let it all the way down just straight away without me having to do that, I think. So that's in neutral. In neutral, it's supposed to release as well. And then any other gear, just assume that, the engine is running, and there's my engine right there, right? So you should be able to build up pressure. Vacuum supplied to the parking brake means parking brake is off. And then now we're back to park. So there's no vacuum going to the parking brake, so that when you engage the parking brake and you press it, it'll stay down. I'm not sure what was going on. That the thing was not passing vacuum at all. Not sure what was going on there. It's going to have to figure that out. So anyway, let me dig a little deeper here and see what I can come up with. But the parking brake release was not working. So that's what we're trying to fix here. All right, I think I was a little incorrect earlier. Let me turn this stupid light off. There we go. All right, so we've got engine vacuum. We're sitting here at about the reverse position. So if you move it to park, the vacuum should go down. And you can tell where I pressed it a little harder than it really went down, right? So no vacuum can get to the parking brake release since you're in park. So there, if you engage the parking brake, it'll stay engaged. So now you get in the car and you crank her up, and then you move the selector to reverse. So simulate the engine. So you're in reverse. You allow vacuum to get over to the parking brake release, and plop, it releases. Now, for whatever reason, this thing's supposed to be it's supposed to allow you to put the parking brake on in neutral, right? So the vacuum switch here is not working really well for the neutral position. So if I move it a little bit, and I'm just going to barely move it, and the needle, there we go, the needle has started to move a little bit. There we go. See, I'm just kind of fiddling with it because I'm over there near the neutral area, you know, and I'm getting it to release, but that neutral area is not releasing all the vacuum correctly. So, and then if you keep going over here, all the way over here, that's like in low gear, right? So I should be able to pump that up. So that's like Cadillac manual comically denotes it as drive right. It actually says that, drive right. In other words, I'm in first gear, right? But it's drive, but the Cadillac service manual calls it drive right, and drive left is the second gear. Anyway, it's silly. I don't know why they do that. And if I move it, so I'm in drive right, or first, now I move it over to second, and you see it dropped all the vacuum. Move it over, there we go. I don't know which position is daggum neutral. I was trying to make some sense out of this stupid thing and just hope, well, maybe we, fixed it by just fiddling with it and moving. I'm really hesitant to take this apart, but I think I have no choice now. All right, so I used a block of wood, very small hammer, little bitty screwdriver, and set this thing on a piece of wood to let these little tabs dangle down so that you don't put any pressure on them. Actually, I broke that one earlier when I was trying to remove this thing, so it's pretty much screwed. I'll have to, when I put it back together, I'll have to do the JB Weld thing, I think. But the others, I was able to retain their originality, so had one minor catastrophe, but hey, look at that. There's your vacuum ports right there. Be curious to see if those are actually clean, so we'll probably be thoroughly engaged in cleaning those. Here is the business end of this thing. Now these are your channels that sends vacuum hither and thither, here and there, as they say. So let's take that out of there. And there's your spring load. This little spring loaded there to mash this against that surface. They have a little bit of wear. There, but it doesn't feel bad. So we'll go ahead. We'll try to clean these ports up and see what's going on here. I'm not sure what kind of lubricant they used in here. I guess I'll just go with white lithium grease. But this rubber seems extremely supple. It seems fine. It's not malformed. The channels look good. They're not, worn out or flopping from one side to the other. I think maybe just a good cleanup will get this thing back in action. Cross your fingers. All right, there she is, all disassembled and cleaned up. I just used WD-40 and a rag and a little pick tool and very like triple-aught steel wool, and cleaned up this surface here, and I used a little air and blew out these ports really good. And this little reinforcement piece of metal goes on the back side of the rubber diaphragm, and that goes on back of that, and that moves inside the channel right there. And this little guy here, the slider, this little guy here is what moves back and forth when you move the gear shifter. And got a couple of springs in here and some contacts for the reverse lights and other stuff. I can't recall. One of them's reverse lights and one of them's neutral safety. Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess maybe this one's reverse and that one's a neutral safety. I don't know. And cleaned up this with a little the steel wool, just real light, And I think my lubricant of choice here will be the Super Lube, same stuff we used on the Mercedes a while back. And I've got enough in here I saved just for little odd jobs, so we'll dab a little bit of that off in here and lube this thing up before we put it back together. All right, got this thing greased up. Got very, very, very light amount of the super lube in there, just with the fingertip here and there, you know, just to make sure everything moves back and forth. And the movement on this thing is a lot better than it was. The performance of the vacuum doesn't seem to be affected by it all that much. In other words, it seems to be functioning about like it was before I took it apart. So we're going to find out though. So up next, I'm going to have to press this down and rebend those little bits of metal there and hold it in place. And then we'll go ahead and put this thing back together, and I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll get back on the car. All right, so all I did was hold it in my hand and tap the edges with a ball peen hammer just lightly and bent it back just a touch, and I think that'll be more than adequate to hold that in there. The movement on it is a lot better than it was. It was actually pretty stiff. The old grease was, well, it was old. Let's go ahead and get the electrical connection bits in there next. All right, we got her back together here. Got some epoxy, some quick weld. I cleaned it with some super clean, then I scuffed it with some sandpaper and epoxied it there, and a couple of other places to you know, take up the slack for the lack of the metal tabs. So these things are like unobtainium. You don't want to break these things. So if you decide to take yours apart, if you're 71, 2, or 3, I think they all use the same part. These little metal tabs right here, that's going to give you a lot of problems. So you need to be prepared for that, or figure out a better way to do it than I did. So anyway, we got her squared away here. I checked the vacuum, and she's operating like she ought to now. So we got a vacuum applied to that. But we're in park, so as we move away from park, you can see it lets the vacuum out like it should. Some kind of way. Let's see, there we go. That's basically reverse. And in theory, it should build back up, right? If you move it over to neutral. So if I kind of guess at where neutral is, maybe about right there, I should be able to pump it back up. Yeah, it should, so I can hold vacuum in neutral. In other words, no air signal is getting to the parking brake release. And then if I move it into drive, it should, there. Yep, it seems to be working correctly. So let's get it on the car. All right, so basically there is a slot in the steering column. And this thing will slip into it. So this stuff's pretty tough to film. All right, I think we got it. So let's go ahead and engage our brake. All right, foot on the brake. And we're gonna move over to drive. And it doesn't work. There we go. I had to move it over to drive left, as they say, or no, drive right, or is it drive left? I'm in second, basically. So it is what it is. I am not gonna split hairs over this 52-year-old vacuum control valve for this parking brake that I never use, but at least it works now. So I'm gonna go straight over to drive. Let's do it gradually this time. There we go. I did it slowly through reverse, and now it won't engage clearly. So, all right, let's do that again. Slowly. Let's do it slowly. There we go. That works pretty well. All right. So if you're going to back out of a parking space, slip it into reverse. No big deal. All right. Now if we're just going to go forwards. There we go. Yeah, it's working fine. Working well enough anyway. And that silly bulb keeps falling down. All it does is slip through a little hole. There's a bracket underneath there. I'll put that back in place. But no big deal. Shame on me. I need to vacuum this car. Sorry guys, it's a little nasty in here. So I've been trying to fix things instead of making them pretty. All right, folks, that's all for now. Just a quick and dirty video on making that stupid parking brake finally released. It hadn't worked the whole time I've had this car, so just kind of been bugging me, and wanted to get that done today. I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below somewhere underneath the car, I think. Anyway, you guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy driving and parking your classic Cadillac safely.